What is up, ladies and gents, Noli here, and welcome to another Payday 2 video. Today I am excited to bring you my personal one-down build. It's the strongest build that I have ever used, and it's got to be one of the best in the game. Let me know in the comments below what you've been running on one-down, and if you think that they outmatch this build, some particularly potent ideas you have. This one was created from scratch by me. I'm really proud of it, and I definitely think it's worth you guys giving it a shot. A little later on, I'm going to walk you through, alongside some hopefully more entertaining gameplay, walk you through the damage numbers, exactly how this build works, and some playstyle requirements that are really needed to get the most out of this build. But for right now, I'm just going to run you through exactly what it is we're running. So, starting things off, character is Hoxton, my actual favourite character in the game. I know a lot of you guys are Wolf fans, Jacket fans, but I've got to stick with the Brit. The Dozer Mask, of course, is my channel icon. The Brothers Grimm 12 gauge shotguns. These things are not widely considered to be one-down weapons, but when actually modified with the Dragon's Breath round, which I'll get onto a little later on, but as you can see, it seems a lot like a bunch of negatives. Lower ammo, lower damage, lower accuracy, which is actually a positive, often on shotguns, but even more so when you're running Dragon's Breath. But like I said, we'll talk about that a little more later on. So, barrel exit is the shark teeth nozzle. The boost I'm running is stability, custom auto fire, no foregrip, gadget, LED combo, it's up to you though, and then make sure you run it with the big brother magazine. This makes a big difference with plus 8 total in the mag, even though this thing has pretty decent reload speeds. Secondary is the China Puff. I know it's not overly original. This weapon did recently get nerfed, but it's still an absolute monster. The nerf barely made any difference. At the end of the day, the fact that this thing launches enemies all over the place is pretty damn awesome. So, we run it. Unfortunately, thematically, I'd love to run the incendiary round, but we don't. We actually just run it standard with the team boost, and there's no need to actually go out there for any additional concealment. This weapon's a fantastic concealment weapon as well, of course, but that's not necessary in this build. I do apologise, as you can see, my improved combined tactical vest was meant to be running the Slayer, but I think currently there's some issues with the FedNet icons, so I'm just going to have to run it with no skin so you don't see it as that weird blank texture. The melee I'm running is the Switchblade. This is very important. If you guys watch my recent Sociopath update video with the Jacket build, you know the Switchblade is my personal favourite melee for that style of build, which this one is. So I recommend running that one. Any fast swinging melee weapon does well though. Throwable is the Concussion Grenade. It's a fan favourite, it does really well. We don't need any explosive for crowd control, we don't need much more fire, we have enough fire with the Dragon's Breath round, so I say we get a big area stun with the concussion. Doctor's Bag is our equipment. We're running the improved combined tactical vest. Of course, Sociopath builds do not go well with dodge, so we've got to get armoured up. Let's move on to the skills as quickly as possible. I've described this one as Flame Melee. That was a work in progress title. I feel like it's more of a madman build, and you'll see that in the gameplay. We, this being a one-down build, work our way up through Combat Medic, Painkillers, Combat Doctor, and Inspire. Obviously, it's very helpful playing online with friends. In Enforcer, start things off with the tank. We ace out Resilience, Hate Flashbangs, pick up Transporter 1, Die Hard 1, Shock and Awe completely aced out. Of course, we are going to be using melee quite a fair bit, and also the armor recovery rate is appreciated. And finally, Iron Man aced. We have some shotgun skills, not many though. You've got to be very sparing because there aren't enough points to go around. And to be honest, you don't need to really focus on the shotgun. The shotgun is good enough in and of itself. So we basic out Underdog. We get Shotgun CQB to increase that reload speed. And then I pick up Close By because I had a few points going at the end. And of course, you do want to be as mobile as possible with this build, even though we're heavily armoured. In Technician, I don't have a whole lot, I just pick up Hardware Expert, it was a free point at the end. Moving on to Ghost as well, just some standard utility skills I tend to bring with me, Duck and Cover, Parkour, and then Second Wind, a much forgotten skill. This is actually a brilliant skill for getting you out of trouble with these heavily armoured builds. Being able to move 30% faster is something you will notice when it pops, get you out of trouble, get round into some cover, and hopefully not die in that situation where you easily could have. Finally, in Fugitive, we see a bulk of the points, I believe. We have some points over here in Gunslinger, of course, for our Akimbo. Equilibrium's not doing anything, but Akimbo is the increased ammo capacity is the prime reason we're picking this up. 9 lives, it's necessary for 1 down, and I think most of the time Swan Song is as well. And finally, some melee skills to make our Switchblade even stronger. Martial Arts, Bloodthirst is basically a necessity. Pumping Iron is also a necessity in this style of build, and then I go Berserker Frenzy because I feel like the damage resistance is worth it with the Sociopath style setup. Just quickly, let's have a look at what Sociopath is giving us. We have Overdog giving us some reduced damage from enemies when surrounded, which will happen an awful lot, plus your second and each consecutive melee hit within 1 second of the last one will deal 10 times its normal damage. This is unbelievable. This multiplies alongside, back over here in Fugitive, multiplies alongside Bloodthirst, it multiplies alongside Pumping Iron. It is beastly. You are going to hit so hard. Oh, and Berserker as well. That's another multiplier for your melee. A really, really strong skill in Overdog and one that we make the most of in this build. Tension, we're going to get some armor regeneration. This does actually have a fair few uses, once every second, and you gain some additional armor overall. Clean Hit, we get some health regeneration, which isn't useful. We'd rather keep our health as low as possible for Berserker reasons, but it also comes with some damage reduction when within medium range of enemies. We also have Overdose, some more armor, you're going to be getting kills at medium range basically all the time, and 10% further armor, so you're going to be much tankier overall. Finally, Showdown, a forgotten perk that actually does a ton of work, killing enemies at medium range, so by setting them on fire is a fantastic way to do this, or with your melee weapon. It's within medium range, at least so I have experienced. It will cause enemies around to panic, so not only will you be stunning enemies with the explosive China Puff, you'll also be stunning enemies with your flame rounds from your shotguns, and also thanks to Showdown. It's fantastic. Now, if you guys don't have the China Puff, or you don't just want to run a boring meta weapon like this one is, of course, everyone does complain about it, but it is the best in-slot, best option for you guys. I'd recommend maybe moving over and just running, where is it? A second Grim 12 gauge. More stun, less crowd control. It's give and take. I definitely don't think this is a bad replacement. I was originally running it like that, and then I realised I'm much better just trying to deal with groups of enemies as quickly as possible, and that's when I moved over to the China Puff. So there we have it. Let's move on to some gameplay, and I'll talk about the ins and the outs of the build. Hopefully you'll find the gameplay entertaining and more convincing evidence this build is one to be reckoned with and worth trying out. I'm going to split this up into a couple of sections, first with the Dragon's Breath explanation, as its mechanics are a little bit unusual. Then I'm going to be talking about how well this build deals with certain enemy types and its overall team utility, followed by a discussion on some key skills, and finally some playstyle tips, most of which should be obvious immediately from the gameplay. Alright, so Dragon's Breath was an ammo type added for shotguns in the Butcher's Barbecue pack to a lukewarm response. Since then it has been heavily buffed, but still flown slightly under the radar. As the name may suggest, they set enemies on fire, doing damage over time to anything it hits. During that period, most enemies enter an animation that prevents any hostile actions against the player. I'll discuss later on the cop classes which resist this effect. Whether the shotgun is able to ignite an enemy though is determined by range. The shotgun does impact damage from 60 feet, but will only set the enemy on fire if they are within 30, which is not bad at all and generally longer than the standard range of a shotgun. It's also worth bearing in mind only a single pellet has to connect for this effect to take place, thus the lower the accuracy on the shotgun, the wider its range of effect is. The damage, if an enemy is set ablaze, is 500 over roughly 3.1 seconds and can be reapplied but not stacked without any cooldown period. In exchange for this, the weapon has a number of its stats reduced and is no longer able to receive headshot multipliers. As I understand, it can however crit, with each of its 5 100 damage ticks having the chance. This build doesn't take advantage of this, but it's still worth mentioning. As such, the weapon you should choose should be low in accuracy and damage, have either a large mag size or fast reload, and have either a large ammo capacity or great ammo pickup. The Brothers Grimm fill all of these categories perfectly. Moving on from just looking at our primary, we'll start with where this build excels. Crowd control on large groups of standard enemies. Being the most common, it's great when a build deals well with the standard cop types, quickly and ammo efficiently. On one down, standard enemies have either 720 or 1440 health, meaning they will die from 2 to 3 incidences of fire proc, and can easily be killed from behind cover. They will also die within 2 swings of your switchblade, and who can forget how good the China Puff is against these groups. On every other difficulty, the majority of standards die in a single shot to maximum. We can also deal excellently with tasers. They are stunned by fire, making it easy to break out the tased effect. They also go down quickly to the switchblade. Shields, while not stunned, can be penetrated by Dragon's Breath and knocked down with shock and awe. Their low health pool makes them simple to dispatch, especially on easier difficulties. All bulldozer forms and unique tanky enemies are resistant to our primary and secondary. Bulldozers cannot be stunned, but that's where Sociopath and Overdog comes in. Depending on how many kills you've collected with the Bloodthirst skill, they tend to die in 2 to 3 rapid melee swings. Not only that, but you look like Wolf from Hoxton Breakout doing it. Snipers are an odd one, however. If they happen to take up a bad position and you can get within 30 meters of them, they are child's play to get rid of. If not, they are the greatest problem for the build, wrecking your armor and only being economically hittable within the Swan Song's duration. Also troublesome are medics. They're tough to focus down with this build and will often pick up a few revives on enemies you assumed would burn to death. They're not stunnable and have a pretty hefty health pool, meaning I often tend to whip out the China Puff or melee to get rid of these guys. For build utility, we have Inspire Swansong, which is almost a necessity on 1 down these days, and that's about it. The build is really focused on slaying enemies and defending your more objective-minded teammates. That's it for enemies. Just keep in mind, if you play on any difficulty below 1 down, this build feels like a free win, as enemy health pools just don't seem to be designed to deal with Dragon Breath's DPS. Now, I've already been spotlighting some skills throughout this section, but I do just want to point out a few and how they synergize. Showdown is a wonderful final perk in Sociopath, which gives a 75% chance of panic. This makes charging in with melee much safer and a viable option even on 1 down. Cover is not necessary if all the cops are stunned in one way or another. Shotgun CQB is the only required shotgun orientated skill, as the Grim's damage is all in the flaming rounds. Increasing reload by a sizable amount means that you can put that many more rounds down range. The final skill I thought I'd touch on is Akimbo in the Fugitive skill tree. All of you know what Berserker and Frenzy combine to do at this point, so I think this is the only remaining wildcard. The key here is the increased ammo capacity. The Brothers Grimm are all about being able to fire non-stop, and this skill is required to make this weapon entirely ammo efficient. Last but not least, a couple of tips with this build. I suggest burst firing whenever possible, as you only need a single shot for the Grims to take effect. Managing ammo is important. Even though this weapon has a fantastic pickup rate, you will often find yourself firing at max range to remain effective. This means ammo falls outside your immediate grasp and should be retrieved by a China Puff charge. Even if this results in you going down, Swansong will allow you to grab the ammo you need to stay relevant, and once revived, you carry medic bags to reset downs. Last but not least, remember to focus taking cover and deal with enemies that approach you with close range melee. You can jump out of cover and burst down a large group of enemies with 500 damage from the Dragon's Breath, and then proceed to hide out of line of sight and take out the weakened cops as they approach. This style of play will ensure you remain safe and effective throughout a heist, even with friends or AI. Ladies and gents, I hope you have enjoyed this video. This one was my baby and I've loved playing around with this build. It's undoubtedly one of the most effective builds in the game at every difficulty. It's also ideal for those of us who don't have the aim to compete on 1 down but still have the game sense, or just simply heisters who enjoy fast-paced fire and explosions in their build. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.